All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Unsecurity podcast. This is episode 147. I'm Brad Naya, along and co-host with me. Wow, I can't talk. Is Evan Francine. How are you doing, Evan?
I'm doing well, man. I'm on the road right now in a car, doing a podcast from the car in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So
Yeah, our calendars right now are just so insane. We got to figure out with school starting and my wife working now. We can't record before work because I got kid duty. So we're
well,
a
that's
little chaotic right now.
that's one of the topics for today's show too. You know, it's busyness, man. Everybody is just swamped right now, and how are we coping with all this stuff? I was in Portland on Monday and Tuesday this week, home for a day. I got home 5:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. I took a red eye, spent Wednesday at home, and then back on the plane again for Grand Rapids, and that's where I'm at today. And the reason why I'm doing it from the car is it's the only time I can fit it in, between here and the hotel. It's
I
crazy,
know
man.
it's nuts. And then uh, we're going to try and record on Tuesday morning, but I woke up with a migraine that lasted all day. It was about, I don't know, 14 hours or so, which is always a blast. And then today my son woke up with a fever and a sore throat. So it looks like he's got strep. He's at the doctor right now. So he was home all day today and probably tomorrow, which I said, all things considered, at least one of the benefits of over the last 18 months is we're used to it now. So it wasn't horrible. Normally,
Right.
prior to that, I probably would not have gotten much of anything done. But luckily, we've gotten kind of comfortable with it. And
Yeah, comfortable. And I was talking to a friend. It was Eric Hansen from Team Ambush at FRSecure, and it kind of dawned on me. We had a talk last week. We were talking some math about how we do risk scoring on vulnerability scanning. And so, because we've changed that algorithm a few times just to kind of dial it in. And I think we went too far on the other side, right? We were maybe a little lax before. It wasn't a great representation of risk. And then I think we went a little tight on it. And now, but anyway, we were talking about, it dawned on me like normal. What the hell is normal
yeah.
nowadays?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, is normal getting hacked? Because that's happening everywhere. Is normal, running around 1,000 miles an hour? Or is it, is normal, we're security people, and I'm always kind of harping on people they keep buying shit, plug it into their network and not knowing what they got, not knowing how to secure it, not being responsible with it. And I'm like, is that normal? I mean, shit, I don't even know what normal is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then, yeah, you mentioned that, buy things. You saw Moody's bought into BitSite, and they're going to use that now. So don't get us started on that. But yeah, from a personal perspective, I don't think we're anywhere close to what normal is going to be yet, because there's just so much still unknown about and changing so rapidly. So hopefully by this time next year, we've got some semblance of routine and normalcy back.
One, and I have this. I've always had this problem with saying no, but I think now it's even worse because everybody's so busy. So there's more people asking for things than there was before. In this week, lots of really great conversations, and I had a conversation with Wells Fargo that went awesome on Monday.
Awesome.
Another conversation with LPL Financial that went great. Which is huge. I didn't even realize how big they are and how many security challenges they got to face there. I mean, that's a crazy job. And then it was the Air Force, the CISO for the Air Force, Wanda, on Tuesday morning. Equifax, their business information security officer. And then yesterday was the Connecticut chief information security officer. That guy is amazing. Like if I lived in Connecticut, I'd be really happy with, being represented, or, having him at the helm of cybersecurity. But
Well,
the challenge is, how do you get deep with these relationships? I don't like transactional shit. I want to get, I want to be relational, and it's hard right now.
yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Especially still with all the challenges. But as I say, I was yes, that the challenges that they mentioned are basically the exact same as everything we see from those, 10 to 50 to a 200 employee companies. It's just expanded in scope significantly.
Well, and I've mentioned it on a couple of podcasts, here, this programmatic distributed empowerment for information security. Originally, I was calling it programmatic distributed accountability for information security, but then I realized that nobody likes the word accountability. So I was like, well, then let's make it empowerment, but
Yeah.
really it's going to be accountability. And it's been resonating a lot. And the challenge is, the CISO has two jobs, right? Job number one, you consult the business to make really good risk decisions. And so that means you're going to have to get some really good risk data. You're going to have to speak their language. And we talked about that. I mean, I think we're going to talk about it next week, because you brought up, Gartner's thing about who CISOs need to build relationships with in a business. That'll be a fun conversation next week. But that's job number one, right? Job number two then is, once they make those risk decisions, and many of those risk decisions you won't agree with, but it's your job to implement those risk decisions to the best of your ability. And if they make shitty risk decisions on a regular basis, maybe it's you not communicating well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the foundation for this PDEIS in terms of working with large, complex organizations.
And we lost Evan.
All right.
And Evan's back. So continue.
Right? That was kind of cool, man. We did a short little pause there.
The joys of recording this on the road.
Right. No, but I was talking about, and you know what happened is, in this car, I'm in a rental car, so I don't know this car very well. And there's like this knob in the middle of it. It's a Mazda something or other. I put my hand down as I was talking and smacked the hang up button. I guess that's a hang up button.
Whoops.
I didn't even know that was a hang up button.
So here's what's interesting. So you mentioned the empowerment and all that. And to me, this is, so we had a vendor questionnaire that I responded to. They came back with a bunch of like recommendations from their compliance person. And the one is, it was like, our system backups of system and data performed? If yes, how often? And my response was basically like, they're backed up per the data owners or asset owners requirements, right? Because
Sure.
that's how it should be, right? Like, hey, they define what the requirement is, and then as the custodian, we implement a solution. So the recommendation came back with, recommend having defined backup schedule not only at user's request, but organizational minimum standard. I'm like, no, you're missing the point.
It sounds like a compliance person. It sounds like from a compliance person from a big company.
This person, I believe, has been at some big companies, but this is a like 25-person organization.
A 25-person organization?
I know. Anyway.
Wow. All right. Well, okay. Check the box.
Although I will say this, I'll give them credit, because I think this might be the first time I've ever gotten any kind of feedback on this. So they, at least it was actually read.
That is important.
So, because yeah. Anyway.
Well, so now you answer those questionnaires.
Yep.
And are you, and this is more curiosity because we talk about all kinds of things, but are you sort of the de facto CISO then at FRSecure?
Yes, that's not really in the I lead our InfoSec committee.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
So
I
I think
think,
some people think that. I think some people think that I'm the CISO, and I don't want to be the CISO. So I nominate you.
oh, thanks. No
Yep.
pressure.
No pressure.
Oh, it's been,
And very low expectations too. By the way, I set the bar low for you.
yeah. Well, it's been fun because what I've been doing is rotating out different consultants to lead those meetings while I'm, kind of, it gives them an opportunity to be coached and be involved with that stuff. So we're using it as also as a training opportunity for our consultants to get, a little bit more exposure to me and how I do things. And it gives them some exposure to, how we do things as a company. So we're kind of making the best of having to do this stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's one of our topics, right, for today is just the busyness, and trying to, because the more and more security people I talk to, the more and more, and we've always said, oh yeah, I'm busy, and a work-life balance is screwed and whatever. That's always been us, but it seems worse lately to me. Does it seem worse to you?
I mean, it just feels like it keeps going. I mean, there's so much work out there to be done, and as a plus, people are finally paying attention to this stuff and reaching out. So I mean, that's great, but oh my gosh. And then it's the constant little things that you don't expect. So like, we're going to sell, or we sold the S2 org and then mapping it to FFIEC or mapping it to the CIS. And when they were sold, it was a different version. So now it's like I have the CIS mapping that, well, 8 is out now. And when it was sold, it was a 7. So we don't have the mapping for 8. So now it's like, oh, hey, you get to map the current assessment to the CIS and FFIEC that we don't have. It's like, just, yeah. It's just all kinds of stuff that just you can't account for.
Yeah. Well, I know that for me, and I can only speak for me. I do try to talk with, friends in this industry and figure out how they're doing and how they're feeling. You got to invest in each other. But for me, I'm definitely my own worst enemy. I don't say no enough. I mean, I took on 2 assessments for, the Carolina Cyber Center, which I love their mission. They're taking essentially, college students, and the school is selling information security risk assessments to small to mid-sized businesses at a lower price, and then using students to actually do those risk assessments so they get real practical hands-on experience. But they'd never done it before. So they were like, hey, will you, lead the first couple? I'm like, sure. Without, I mean, I don't have time. It's like, son of a gun. I should have said no. And then the Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu, asked if I would teach a class for new women who want to get in this industry. I was like, sure. And then again, I'm like, son of a gun, man, say no. So,
and same thing. I got asked by marketing, hey, are you able to speak for this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Oh, wait, why am I saying that?
I know, man.
But
it's part of that's the mission, though, right? I mean, we want to help people.
Right. Well, and I will say this, I think I've gotten at least a little bit better in terms of like understanding like what is expected and being able to say no. Like there was one that came up and it was like not something that I was really comfortable talking about, and the timing just wasn't going to work. So I was like, that's really not a good opportunity in my opinion. And they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, wait, what? But this one is for something within the state, something for the state of Minnesota. I don't remember what off the top of my head, but I figure we have a good relationship with the state, so that's one that's worth that little extra amount of work.
Well, so I fit in a call. So here's another example, man. I fit in a call. I was in Chicago O'Hare on a like an hour and some odd minute layover, and had a call with the Cyber Security Summit, and I guess they're doing this public, I don't know, like public security day, like public entity kind of security. I don't know what the name of it is. And they asked if I would participate. And once again, I was like, hell yeah. And I'm like, damn it. So I'll be talking there too, I guess. But
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I don't know.
and that's all like kind of external stuff. Like that doesn't even include the
I know,
internal
right?
issues that come up. Like I've had to jump in and help with some customer sat stuff with what, you know, you mentioned the scans and people that were used to a certain way and now having to like handle and try and explain that and what's changed and why. And, you know, and those, you, again, you never know when that's going to happen and pop up, but you got to get on those very quickly and move things around. And yeah.
Yeah. But I think the key is, and I think I'll learn it eventually, is figure out the things that you're supposed to be working on. Because in our industry, in our job roles, you'll never be done. And there's just never a shortage of things you can do. It's trying to figure out what things I actually should do. And, I'm 30 years into this industry and I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I think part of that goes to, you know, just our personalities of wanting to do it right. And, you know, like we had one come up with a 800-171 POAM and I'll be honest, I hadn't looked at our POAM template for, gosh, probably 4 years. And I saw what we were using. I was like, oh no, we need to update this. Now we don't do a lot of them. So, but it's like, I couldn't in good conscience just give them, it wasn't sufficient in my opinion. So what did I do? Well, I rated it pretty significantly. And, you know, it took a little longer than I had scheduled, but it's like, it's the right thing to do.
Right. Yep, totally. Well, so the other thing that, was sort of on my mind this week, in terms of busyness, I think, everybody's got their own work-life balance. I've always said to others, like, you can tell if you have work-life balance based on the status of your relationships, the relationships that matter, like the relationship with your wife or your husband or your kids, whatever relationships are really important in your life. I think you're out of work-life balance when those relationships are suffering.
Yeah.
And thank God, I got a message from my wife this morning when on my way to the airport, and it was the sweetest message. And I was like, okay, I must be somewhat in balance because I guess my marriage is in really good shape. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Well, and it helps having that, you know, open communication where, you know, neither side is, and this goes for any relationship really, right? If it's a healthy one, there's going to be that open communication where if there is an issue, the other person will say something rather than just let it fester.
Right. Yeah. And I think advice, for listeners is, and I've taken this advice myself, even though people think I work too much. My marriage is in good shape. The relationships that matter in my life are in good shape. I think the best advice I can give is don't try to compare yourself with somebody else. Don't try to, if they're working 80 hours a week and they seem like they're happy, that doesn't mean you work 80 hours a week, and vice versa. If you are working 80 hours a week and your marriage and everything is in good shape and somebody else is working 40, you don't have to back down to 40 just for the sense of 40. I mean, you got to feel out what your own work-life balance is. And I think use your relationships to judge where you're at, Do you think that's good advice?
So yeah. Talk to those people, you know, and ask.
Yeah, totally, man.
But
Because those
yeah,
things matter more. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, if there's, if it's not a good balance, it's not like you're going to be most likely gonna your production and quality is going to suffer. So it's not like
Oh,
you're really
for
gaining
sure.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going through a divorce, it's not like you're going to be really focused on, the assessment you're doing or the pen test you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you miss little details? Are you distracted because you have to take a call and right?
Hmm. So the other thing, kind of on the same line, I guess, is I've been frustrated for a long time, but now it's kind of bubbled to the surface again. This thing about accountability, me, I mean, I'm all about accountability, but at what point do we start saying certain things in an organization are negligent? Like if you're not doing this one thing with information security, we're going to call that negligence, and you're like automatically going to be, uh, you know, not found guilty because it's not criminal, or maybe it needs to go criminal at some point, but you're automatically going to lose a case in civil court. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about this and kind of on the fly, I have like, I would say three things that if I don't have these three things, then what are they doing? And to me, that's a good asset management, patch
Yep.
management, and then endpoint protection. Because and obviously we could dive into those, but if you have those three things, at least you know what I have. What do I have? I'm patching it so I'm not going to be easily exploited, and then a good endpoint protection. So if a user does click something, hopefully it catches it. And I mean, we could go don't remove local admin from everywhere because that remove, but you can't really do that without the other stuff, those those things in place.
Right. Well, and I and this is the cool thing about it, right? Because it's all discussion points, but I think at some point we as an industry need to define, and we can't wait for lawyers to do it because lawyers suck. Sorry if there's lawyers who listen.
Not
It's,
security people.
well, no, they suck too, but I don't know. Maybe we all suck. But it's the, we can't wait for lawyers because it's a different motivation, than I think number one for me is we need to figure out how a CEO or a board of directors or a business owner, how we make them accountable. And so there's got to be some demonstration of their understanding that ultimately this is their responsibility, whether it's a pledge they make, whether it's uh, some sort of involvement that, maybe the four things, maybe they need to always have, this is where we're at, this is where we're going, this is when we're going to get there, and this is how much it's going to cost, some kind of thing
Yeah.
that if you're not doing this, you're negligent.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what that is. I'm going to actually be putting together a pledge for next month, just a CEO slash governor slash, you know, county commissioner slash mayor accountability thing where essentially it's like, I'm going to make a pledge that, and I got to fill in all the that's, but I'll send that back and forth to you and other friends and try to get
Yeah.
what that needs to be. Because what I don't want is them to just consent to information security. I want you to champion it.
Right. Well, and I mean, without question, the programs that we see that are successful exactly have that buy-in at the highest level, whether it be the owner or the board or the CEO. They have that person or those people pushing it and supporting it and buying in and actually, it's not just a do as I say, not as I do. They're actually doing the things that should be done.
Yeah, exactly. It's the and so I think it'll be reflecting on a lot of those things that actually work in those places, because at the end of the day, what people don't, I think, really realize is that one, information is an asset and it's your most valuable asset, right? It's It's not the hardware anymore. It's not the, the printing press stuff. It's not tangible.
Right.
And it's also, I'm sort of tired of the lip service, right? And then you read a study, and I got to go find that study again, that something like 50 some odd% of CEOs view cybersecurity or information security, they view it as a wasted effort or waste of time or money or something like that. I got to go find that.
Center.
And that's bullshit, because it's not their data.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, and
you may not care about it because you don't suffer, but somebody suffers, and that's wrong.
yeah. Well, and we keep talking about, and obviously the data can be interpreted differently, but what's the cost of a breach? Okay, so you could have spent, let's just say $20,000 to get your risk assessment and $50,000 to fix those problems. So you're out 70,000. Okay, so what are you going to do when you get ransomed? You're down for 3 days and still have to pay, or even worse, FBI comes in and says, nope, you can't pay. They're on the banned list. And now you're down trying to recover. How much is that going to cost? And people,
Well,
it's so short-sighted.
Well, and even shorter than, and we always talk about what it costs the business. How about what it costs the customers?
Oh,
right. That's never been quantified. Like, what does it cost for your customers when their identity does get stolen? Which, I don't know how often that actually happens or not, but there's a cost associated with it. And eventually, now that the fact that cybersecurity and safety can't be separated, there will be a day, mark my words, when people die.
Well, and I agree with you. I'm just thinking more of is that going to resonate with the CEO or a board? No, that's not how they think. So how do we get their attention and then bring that in as kind of a secondary, okay, and now this is why we are doing it.
Well, I wonder if they would think that way if we figured out how to actually speak their language.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because I've talked to a lot of CEOs, and I really feel like they want to do the right thing. I think they just get so many different signals from so many different places. I think a lot of them don't know what the right thing is.
Sure. Absolutely could be the case.
Well, it's sad because it's like, we should be doing a much better job 30 years into this, 40 years into this now.
Yeah, I know. It is frustrating. It's kind of interesting to see the difference in IT, true IT and security, because IT does change, right? Like the technology is changing. Now that it is cyclical, right? It was on-prem, and then it was, the green screens with, centralized computing with, terminals, and then back to on-prem, and then outsourcing our IT, and then bringing IT back in. But it does move forward, even if there is some sort of a cyclical piece to it. And it feels like security, yeah, we're still fighting the same battles that have always, it doesn't change. They're just, yeah.
Well, that was the talk, yesterday too, with Jeff Brown, the CISO for the state of Connecticut. It was such an enjoyable conversation. We had a half an hour scheduled, and we ended up talking for a full hour, and we could have talked for another couple hours. The guy was dead on, in my opinion, on how he approaches security. It was like we were speaking the same language, and we just need to get better at getting on the same page. We need to figure out what we're going to, many of us complain that the CISO, or that the CEO, the board, the owner, the governor, whoever, that they're not buying in, or they're not supporting us well enough. We don't have enough budget. We don't have enough staff. We don't have enough whatever. And so we make a lot of excuses. And then I think about what a CISO's job really is, right? It's consult the business on how to make good risk decisions. So then when I look at like the state of anything, take the state of Minnesota, and I'm only picking on the state of Minnesota because they're right. I'm a resident there. But when I ask, the state of Minnesota, whether I ask the Blue Ribbon Commission on IT, or I ask the governor himself, or I ask the legislature, or I ask the CISO, whoever, when I ask them, what is the current state of security in the state of Minnesota today? And I don't get an answer. What that tells me is we're not consulting well. There should be an answer for that.
Agree. And yeah, I think I mean, it feels about the same things, but that's the problem. As an industry, we don't communicate well with the business.
Right. So I don't blame the CEO. You know, there are crappy CEOs, like, you know, whatever. But in general, across the board, I don't really blame them as much as I blame us. I don't think we've done this well. I think we really need to up our game, learn to speak better. There's just so much to do there.
It is. You know, if you keep, why are you doing the same things that you keep failing at, right? Why are we banging our head against the wall? So we got to change it up.
Well, the insanity is, I was talking with another CISO. How does it make any sense? So you currently don't know what it is you're trying to protect, meaning you don't have an asset inventory. And so what you do is you go buy more stuff.
Right.
I mean, think about that. You already don't know how to secure what you have, so you're going to go get more stuff that you don't know that you have.
Well, and
I mean, where's the sanity and the logic and all that?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, how many times in an incident have we heard, well, I spent our security or IT budget is X amount. Well, okay, that's great, but you clearly, it wasn't configured properly. You just threw it in place and assumed it would work. Nobody would ever managed it or monitored it. You know, you can't just throw money at the problem.
Exactly.
Yes, there has to be a budget and it has to be appropriate. And we get asked that all the time. What's appropriate? I keep hearing, you know, one of the ones I hear X amount of your IT budget should go to security. And my response is, I don't think you can put a firm number on it. You have to look at your situation, what you have, and then determine what's, you know, appropriate based on your unique situation, because no two companies are the same.
100%, man. And if information security is risk management, which it is, then that means risk management, right? Make this simple. The fundamentals are you assess risk, you make risk decisions, you implement those risk decisions, and you continue the cycle, right? It's the same thing you would do with any risk. And so if that's the way we do this, well, then your budget is going to be based on your risk decisions.
Exactly.
So how can I say that my decisions are the same as your decisions? Well, I think one way, because we're talking about what's going to be negligence and what's not. I think the CEO thing, and then I agree with you completely on asset inventory. I mean, what the hell? I don't understand how anybody can possibly think that they're securing things if you don't know the things.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
And that's super frustrating. So I agree with you on that for sure. And then what was your next one?
Vulnerability management, patching.
Yeah.
Understanding that. What, you know, to that extent, what ports are open to the internet, right? What traffic are you allowing? To me, that kind of falls into that vulnerability management. So it's more than just patch management. And then the last one was, you know, good endpoint protection. Like have a centralized endpoint protection that you know what's going on your network.
Yeah, I can see that too. I think I agree with you on asset inventory, and then I think it's to your point. You know, yours is, you know, patch management, which I would put under kind of like a broader category of like configuration control, or, you know, / change control / access control / you know, because all those, you know, fundamentally I can't secure the things I don't know I have, and then secondly I can't secure the things I can't control. So I think you just fit configuration management into that as well. You have to have a program for it.
Well, and I guess from when I thought of this, it was like what are the like very, very high level? Because if a company is doing nothing, what are three things they could do? And they're not going to go to change management and configuration management from zero. So that's kind of where I was thinking.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that yes, it would fall under a much broader category like that.
And I would be fine if we just started with, our top two, right? And then let's move the ball from there. So number one is figuring out roles and responsibilities, the accountability piece. That's number one. And then number two, asset inventory, asset management. You have to be solid there. Define what solid is. And I think that's phase one, right? We'll do phase two once we get kind of our hands around that one.
Because that's not an easy thing either, right? It's not, you're not going to typically get that done overnight.
No. But, and that's when you talk about like financial management, because CEOs are held accountable for asset management. I think we just haven't traditionally or haven't made that shift to actually believing that our information is an asset. We say it, but we don't hold people accountable for it. Whereas because the Target breach, that was 2013. Here we are 8 years later. What was core to that derivative action, which, I was on a special litigation committee for, was what was core was that the board of directors did not manage the assets of Target Corporation, sufficiently or well, right?
Yep.
And so here we are, and the recommendation to the court was that that it does not proceed, and that was lawyers, that wasn't me. And so it was basically that case was dropped, and I think most derivative actions are dropped because we still don't hold them accountable for information as an asset.
Yeah. And then it makes it a lot harder to hold that accountability if there isn't any standard, and there isn't at this point.
Right. And I think what we don't need in this industry are more like standards. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need another damn framework. I don't need another set of controls that I should have in place. What I need is some damn accountability for like the most fundamental, most basic controls.
No, and that's what I meant. And I'm not saying like, hey, well, we need another NIST CSF. It's like, hey, here is like you said, tier one, you need to be doing these two things. Tier two, you need to be doing these two things. Not, and keep it high level. But yeah, like there is no, I guess, standard in terms of what is acceptable.
Right.
We need to define that. Maybe that's a better way to put it, is we have no definition of what is acceptable at this point. So it's hard to move forward one way or the other if nobody knows what that is.
Exactly. Yeah, no. So I think, but we have to figure this out. And that's actually, we're going to talk about this tonight too on the shit show. Otherwise it's the same thing, right? If nobody's held accountable, then what would you ever expect to change, right? It's the same thing with like raising kids.
Yeah.
If I don't discipline my kids, then why would they ever change their behaviors? They just keep doing the same thing. They would keep eating all the junk food and lay around and play video games, all the time, because that stuff feels good. That stuff is fun. But what about cleaning your room? What about getting a job? What about, taking out the garbage? Those things aren't fun, but they're responsible. And I hold my kids accountable for that. If you don't do it, then you don't get these other things that you enjoy doing.
Right.
And so that's like parenting 101. And I think maybe we need a cybersecurity parenting course or something. I don't know.
Well, it's the consequences for your actions. And right now, there aren't any for the fact that you're not, in this case, inaction.
Right.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do.
Well, we do. And I think at least, we're talking about it.
Yep.
And hopefully more people will talk about it. and hopefully, that'll be the start of something more, because we can't be the only ones talking about it either. So then let's join forces and let's actually implement some changes. Because here's the deal, man. I got 700, and I say I'm not going to work, but I will still. I got 729 days, man, and we got to get our shit together. I don't want to leave it like this.
Right. Yeah. And it sounds like what you've said with your conversations with other CISOs, or, in all the different industries, there is a desire for that. It's just nobody's done anything about it because everybody, going back to our first topic, everybody's just so damn busy all the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, it'll be fun to continue this discussion, because I think it's so important, and we have to figure it out. Otherwise, things won't get better. We'll keep pissing away money on controls that don't work and chasing ghosts, in our industry. And I think it'll be a nice segue into next week's topic when we talk about, who CISOs should, really foster relationships with in the business. Why, who and why, because that'll go a long way towards you as a CISO anyway, towards you, pushing it to where it goes, right? The responsibility.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
stuff. So you got some new stuff for us?
Some new stuff. First one, patch Chrome. That's all I'll say.
Yes.
There's 2 0 days that have exploits in the wild. So make sure you patch Chrome. It's just, I will say this. I'm glad that they're, oh man, the website's not letting me. I have 0 complimentary articles left that I had open. Must have refreshed.
I hate that. Yeah, all the news places now are going to this subscription-based thing where it's like, I used to be able to get news kind of for free online, but they have to make money now.
Yeah, let's see. I gotta find another one real quick with the details because I don't remember what they are. Yeah, so the other thing to be careful about is that Brave browser and Edge browser are also Chromium based and likely vulnerable. So not just Chrome itself, but any of those Chromium based browsers, you're going to want to get patched. But yeah, they are currently exploiting the vulnerabilities. So it's like, Chrome is JavaScript, not surprising there.
No.
Oh. What are you going to do? Patch, keep on top of this stuff.
Very true. Very true, man. And that's, Chrome is nice because I use Chrome quite a bit. And, if you look in the top right-hand corner of your browser window, they give you a nice button there that says update, right? So if you've been ignoring that for a while, well, then shame on you.
Yeah.
You should always be updating your browser for sure, because that's like your portal into like the bad places.
And they make it so easy. You just click it, it restarts and brings up all your pages and tabs and everything. It doesn't log you out. It takes like 30 seconds because it's already downloaded and gotten everything ready to go in the background. It just needs to relaunch to get clear things and get it going.
Yep.
Anyway, so second one is 3 former U.S. intelligence officers admit to hacking for a U.A.E. company. Department of Justice on Tuesday, it disclosed it had fined 3 intelligence community and military personnel $1.68 million in penalties for their roles as a cyber mercenary working on behalf of a UAE-based cybersecurity company. And over a 3-year period, too, just starting around December 2015 and through November of 2019, working as senior managers at a UAE company. So there's the ITAR issues and export control and computer
Yeah,
fraud.
that's a bad thing, man. That's just when you make crappy decisions, it's like goes back to that accountability thing too. I mean, when you make crappy decisions like that, man, there's got to be a bad punishment for you. You got to set some sort of precedent so other people are like, yeah, I was thinking about maybe no, not doing it.
Yeah. It's interesting because you've got the three. Mark Beyer is 49, Ryan Adams 34, Daniel Garicki 40. I mean, they're still have a long time to go in their career, and that's not what you want on your record. It's interesting though. VPN provider ExpressVPN said it was aware of Daniel Garicki's previous employment before hiring him. He's currently the CIO at the company, and we'll see. We'll see. They said that it was his history and expertise that made him an invaluable hire for our mission to protect users' privacy and security. Not sure that that's if they've gone and worked illegally like that.
Yep.
So I don't use ExpressVPN, but if I saw that, I probably would look at somewhere else at that point.
Yeah, what VPN do you use?
Nord.
Yeah, I switch between Proton and Nord.
Yep, I was gonna say, well, that and Proton.
Proton, yeah, like I'm a loyal customer too. So if as long as you do me right, I'll stay here forever. But once you start pissing me off, I'll never come back.
Yep, exactly. All right, and so last story: ransomware preparedness is low despite executives' concerns. 86.7% of C-suite and other executives say they expect the number of cyber attacks targeting their organizations to increase over the next 12 months, according to a recent Deloitte poll. I would say, 13.3% are incorrect.
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny because one of the things we talk about accountability, one of the things that, I wrote a while back now was the ransomware recovery contract, where it's a contract that I don't know why every CEO in the world doesn't take this to their IT department and say, hey, sign up on this. Because if you're doing these, 10 things, there's a really good chance that you're going to be able to recover from the ransomware attack. Not to say that they won't still exfiltrate data, but most CEOs are less concerned about that anyway, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's what we were just talking about earlier.
Right.
They bothered me on this one. Yeah, okay, 87, we'll say 87. So yeah, 13, don't think it's going to increase. They're wrong, that's fine. 65% of polled executives say ransomware is a cyber threat posing major concern to their organizations over the next 12 months. Again, that should probably be 100, but that's okay. At least we've got 65%. But only 33% say their organizations have simulated ransomware attacks to prepare for an incident. So if it's a major concern, why are you not doing anything about it?
That's the illogical piece of all this. And I think the reason why they're not is one, I think maybe two reasons. And maybe I'm wrong. And if listeners have, other reasons, reach out to us and let us know what you think. But number one, I don't think they know what to do. I don't think they're getting good advice. And number two, there's really nothing really happens to them if they don't do it right. They just either have cyber insurance or, if they're not an owner, the company goes to shit, they just go get another job.
Yeah. Well, and
there's always a place to point the fingers, right?
Yep. The interesting part to me on this was the questions. So they included questions leaders can ask to gauge their organization's ransomware preparedness. And not bad, but I think it's completely missing the point and kind of honestly maybe part of the problem, right? So first question, does our organization's cyber incident response plan address ransomware attacks specifically? That's a good question. I think that, yes, you should know if it does or not.
Right.
Has our organization considered adopting zero trust to help bolster cybersecurity against ransomware and other threats? We've
Okay.
talked about zero trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
How about you have a fucking asset inventory? Excuse my language. Are they gonna
yeah,
have to beat that out? Sorry.
you know,
That was total frustration right there. Sorry.
yep. All right. Does our organization fully appreciate how ransomware attacks could exploit our use of emerging technologies to propagate attacks? Are we leveraging emerging technologies to better protect our organization from those threats? Why are we throwing money?
I know, man. That's yeah. Buy more stuff. Buy more stuff. Buy more stuff. Buy more stuff. And the reason why is, and it's so shady. It's slimy. It's just, we have to do better at this in our industry. You don't have to buy more stuff. Period. You just don't.
Just, yeah. How does our organization test for ransomware vulnerabilities? So frequent penetration testing can help identify attack surface vulnerabilities. I mean, so we have customers that, like, I actually just had a good example, had somebody that did internal external pen testing. They were completely owned, that we found domain admin credentials and clear text stored on the network. And then the question from our team is, okay, what can you look at this and then tell me what they should do? What should be their next step? Well, if it's that bad, do a risk assessment. Do you even know what you've got out there? Clearly not. Oh,
Right.
anyway. And then the last one, does our organization conduct threat hunting to manage ransomware risk? Again, not a bad thing to do, but is that really a top 5 question that we should be asking? No.
Right.
Do we have an asset inventory? Do we have access controls in place? I do like does the incident response plan address ransomware? That's a good one. I like that one. Other than that, I don't think any of those are top 10 that I would ask.
I know, and it makes you wonder, like, do people who write these articles, have they ever actually done any of this before?
Right.
Have they ever actually been in an incident response before?
Yeah, that would be a very good question.
Because what really happens is doesn't reflect in those recommendations. You know, reality doesn't reflect in those recommendations.
No, not at all.
And so, do you want to just buy more stuff, or do you actually want to,
Yeah,
protect against reality, the real things?
right. Yeah, how many, like, yeah, I'm with you. How many have done incident response and seen the reality? How many have gone through an incident and understood, or is it all just academic? And I say it right, with the CISSP, there's a lot of academic around that versus what happens in the real world. We say that in the mentor program. Yep. You have to have that real world experience to do things right.
Yeah. And hopefully people will listen at some point. You know what I mean? Listeners of the podcast, take this stuff to heart. I mean, it's all truth, and you can stand on truth. You can't stand on the shaky, like, I wish it were this way, because it's just not. You have to do, you can continue to put off asset management. I guarantee you it will just get harder and harder and harder, because you just keep adding more and more and more stuff.
Exactly.
Asset inventory was easy when I had, a few hundred computers and, 3 servers and, maybe 30 apps, total. on the network. But now, you know, organizations don't know. They have thousands potentially of apps on their network. And so you could have already gotten ahead of this had you implemented the right processes, you know, to scale with your business. Or you can just keep sitting back and waiting and pissing away more money, and the problem will just get harder later. It's up to you. Eventually you have to do it regardless.
Yeah, there will be a day of reckoning. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be.
Guaranteed, man. I mean, that's just logic tells you these things. And if you don't, and I wonder how many people actually get logic. Like, oh, okay. Because this logic, it really isn't like crazy logic. It's pretty serial. It's pretty cause and effect-ish. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, we could go on for hours on this, but
Well, and we will. That's the whole thing about a podcast, man, is we do go on for hours just across many episodes. And it's always super valuable to me, you know, to get the sanity checks with you, you know, every week, man. Thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. It's fun. I like doing it. It's 3 years in. It's insane. All right. Well, with that, we will wrap it up. That is it. I don't have the notes in front of me. I'm at Brad and I on Twitter. Evan is at Evan Francine. You can find us on LinkedIn. FRSecure is at FRSecure. Security Studios at Studio Security. Pretty impressed that I got all those from memory.
Nice job.
Thank you. Any shout outs to wrap things up?
Well, I gave a shout out to, I don't know if you saw it on LinkedIn today. I gave a shout out to,
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
yeah, I gave a shout out to John Harmon. I think he's, you know, doing a great job. I also give a shout out to Kevin. I don't know if I've given a shout out to Kevin for a while, but I got to spend a day and a half with him out in Portland, Oregon, and this week. And I take for granted sometimes the things that people do, and I shouldn't, you know, obviously. But Kevin's the glue that keeps a lot of things together behind the scenes and takes a lot of heat for it. So shout out to him.
You know what? I'll give Kevin a shout out. I don't know if I ever have, but working with him on some, you know, contract and legal stuff, and yeah, he's just all over it. And as busy as he is, he's very responsive.
Yeah.
So,
He's always trying to do the right thing, man.
Yep. Agreed. So, all right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up and talk to everyone again next week.
Yeah. Take care. Be safe.